Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third live stream of the day. We are reviewing Wolfram language functionality, and we are looking at GeoGraph, which is something long hoped for. Okay, should I run this? Should I run this?
No, those are just like documentation kind of things. Examples you can run.
So this is the summary. This function section is the summary of what we are going to do.
Well, okay, but somebody is going to tell me, do we have like a guide page or something?
No, not yet.
So I get to see the code, or this is the...
No, this is kind of usage style page. Yep.
How do I convert this out of the thing with a gray background so I can't read it? How do I get it not with a gray background? I thought it was Command 8.
These are not initialization cells. They just used gray background.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yes, sorry. So you can change the style of the cell.
Okay. I mean, this is not the that has a lowercase r, blah 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 blah. Okay, let's maybe I should just look at some examples here.
Can you run the initializations group?
I think I did.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I didn't. Okay, but if I take that, oh, come on.
So we are using an external API, and that API fails once and then. Yeah. So.
But I mean, we're not going to be using that. We're going to be using it on our own machines, right?
Yes, eventually.
Okay.
So this is code that is currently using that external API for us to try. So can you run it again?
Just because it might happen, the gremlin might happen to be on break at that time.
Exactly. Yes. So
yeah, you might try 2 or 3 times. Sometimes it's a problem with the API.
So obviously that's not going to be supportable. So we have to solve that.
Sure. The idea is that we deploy our own the API.
And do we need hardware and things to do that?
We need to update the Geo server actually.
Okay, is that in process?
Not yet. So that's
okay, but this I'm not real happy because this particular piece of functionality of GeoGraph has been many years in the making. So, and I thought there was a big excuse that we couldn't do it because of some GeoServer thing, and that was 5 years ago. So what is the story? I mean, we need to actually have this happen. Is what I'm saying, right? Who is making it happen?
So the server side is something that we wanted to update years ago, sure, but on that time we installed a specific version, and that's now very
Sorry,
outdated.
I'm confused. Is this something where GTO and so on are already trying to solve this problem, or is this something where when I ask them, they're going to say, we've never heard of this?
So at some point, WebSys wanted also to update the Geo servers, but that's being delayed by many other
Okay, but you know what? It can't be delayed any further. It's been delayed 5 years, so it really better not be delayed any further. So probably a separate meeting is needed to push that point.
Sure.
Okay.
So can you try again? Maybe external service are already responsive.
No, I mean hopeless. Whatever. We got to solve this, right? Even if it's only a test server for our own purposes, we got to get it up so we can actually use this.
Right. It's not failing that many times for me. Are you in a slow connection, maybe? Okay, now it worked. Yep.
Amazing. Okay, so if I say graph, why are those dots so big? Is that an ordinary graph or is there something weird about it?
It's an
No,
ordinary
that's
graph.
yeah.
hmm
Why are the dots so big?
Those are the default settings.
I don't believe you. See, isn't true. So I'm going to ask again, why are the dots so big? It doesn't make sense. You're setting a vertex size, I think, here. Because this is what I get with the default, with just the edge lists. Am I making sense?
Yep.
Yes, I think the difference is because of the coordinates, because that's, I mean, there's no other
Okay,
settings
so
rather
there are
than
vertex
Mhm.
coordinates that are set
Mhm.
here.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think something else is going wrong. I think it's a bug. Okay. But in any case, it's wrong. We should get it to be like this. If I say graph %13, that's really weird. Something really weird is going on. You might be right, it's the coordinates, but because these coordinates maybe are making the graph layout system think that these points are closer together. I don't know. But okay, it's a bug to be fixed. Okay, but I could have said something. Okay, so that's many more streets. I mean, if I did this for New York City or something, I mean, this is the administrative boundary of Lima, is that right?
No, we choose a geodisk of 0.5 kilometer.
Oh, I see. Right here.
Lima is very large, so it's
Yeah, okay, fine.
you know
I thought,
that.
yeah, I thought this didn't seem convincing. Okay,
New,
what do
New
you
York,
do?
New York,
Go ahead.
I tried, has around almost 3 million points nodes.
Okay.
So it uses around 20 gigabytes of memory. So it's
Okay, but so
everything.
now if we just prune to the intersections, right? So here, for example, we don't really need all of those points. If we're just trying to get connectivity, we don't need all those points. What we need is a graph that has from this intersection to that one, we need to know the distance as an annotation. See what I'm saying?
Right. Yes. That's something that
Mhm.
we were thinking about, having some kind of GeoGraph simplify that will remove superfluous points
Well,
and keep the right
look,
distance, right speed, right?
no, but in your in the features you request, you should be able to do that, right? There should be a version of features in which, I mean, obviously this isn't the right design, right? Of having a string argument, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, this should be able to be something like highway intersections or something. Am I making sense?
Yes. Of course, when you plot that, you won't get the exact overlay over the roads, but I think that's understandable, of course.
No, but I don't understand. Why not? Why not get, oh, I see what you're saying. If the road isn't straight, like this
Right.
one
Yes.
here,
Right.
yeah, that's okay. That's just fine. if I'm trying to solve a routing problem, I don't care that I'm going to have to do that.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
That's why they have to distinguish ways and edges, etc. Because the same street can have many edges.
Mm-hmm. What is a way? Is a way this whole thing from here to here, or what?
Yes, usually that kind of sections are ways, or sometimes a bit more.
Okay, so there's a way connectivity that we could get.
Right, yes.
How would I get that?
Right now, we are not exposing that. So we are only encoding which edges correspond to each way. So we can do some of the.
Yeah, but we need just ways. I mean, it's like highway ways, so to speak, except we don't want to use that word name.
Okay, yeah, that's something we can work on.
Okay.
Because also, let's say a given named avenue might have different ways depending on different sections. For example, if an avenue changes of speed, they usually use a different way for each section.
Okay. But aren't there just a million kinds of things you could have here, like parks and, just other kinds of things? Wouldn't it be better to have something called GeoNames that takes one of these things and you can ask it for, whatever you want, roads or streets or whatever? See what I'm saying? Oops.
Right. That will be possible, of course, and that's that will be more a generalization of this street GeoGraph, right? So, and that's why we are adding a first argument in this structure of GeoGraph to be the type. So for now we were building only a street GeoGraph, but probably we want to build different types of GeoGraph. That's something we were talking with Jose too about that. Maybe one, for example, rivers, right? Or different types of things.
Okay, but we have GeoNearest, which also needs to dovetail with all of this, but GeoNearest, it's the right way around. No, it's volcano, comma here. Wherever that is. But so this is my, those are points, right? Or maybe regions.
Right, volcanoes are points, but yeah.
Okay, so GeoNames. Isn't there a geo within? What's the thing that, if I want to know volcanoes in some particular area, what is that?
GeoEntities.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, which we might be able to reuse here. So geoentities of
for example, geodisc, or yes, for example, Peru volcano. Yeah.
okay, so that would be the obvious thing to do, is instead of having this be Peru, or you have a lot of volcanoes. No, not so many. Okay.
Not in our system yet, but there are probably many more. Yeah.
Okay. Well, in the history of the world, there've certainly been many more, but who
Yeah.
knows? Okay. But so the obvious thing to do here is to be able to say geoentities of GeoGraph of whatever. Now, I do want to say that one of the things we need to be talking about, so the next big project here, is constructible geo objects.
What do you
see what
mean
I'm
by
saying?
that?
Well, I mean, I want to I'm planning out my new subdivision, and I've got this planned set of roads. I want to add my own GeoGraph. I want to build up my own GeoGraph that is that. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's that's kind of GIS databases, and I think that's something we should have kind of a symbolic version of that. That is, right
Yes.
now we have the base maps, but we should also be able to put on a layer effectively.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't need to be really a layer. I mean, it's just a thing with certain geopositions that is added in, and where we can then use GeoNearest on not this, but this thing with, in other words, the here would be annotated by being not just the here. Okay, so the idea would be geoposition, for example, would get just like we have the whole datum thing, but what do the coordinates mean on the Earth, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so here, if I say geoposition, I only know one feature. Right. So why is this so slow? Okay. What?
I think it's better if you just remove Mars from there. It knows this is a Mars.
But it should work.
It should work, yes. It's confused by one being an entity, the other one being a string.
Okay, well, so we can fix that, but
yeah, just remove this one. Oh, okay.
okay. My point is, I think that second argument to geoposition, in fact, there's a good design for this, should be able to be a geo overlay of some kind. See what I'm saying?
I'm not sure. So far we have geoprimitives that we can place on maps, and we can have collections of geoprimitives. What we are missing certainly is powerful computation functions for all those primitives, like geometry stuff. And I think what we have here with GeoGraph is connectivity, which is part of that computation.
No, I understand. But what I'm suggesting is that if I want to store, if I want to use my same functions, geodistance, all that kind of thing, but I want to do it not on the Earth, not on Mars, but on the fictional Tatooine or something.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yes. So then geoposition, you can have geoposition of coordinates and then a pair of equatorial radius, polar radius.
Okay, fine. But that's not, I mean, that was the science fiction example. The real example is I've got my new subdivision that I'm building, and I want to have geographic information in that. See what I'm saying? And that's where I'm suggesting that what we do is it's the Earth as it is, plus your extra roads that you're going to build next year.
But that's not geoposition. That's more a object, a container.
No,
right?
no, obviously. Look, this would be something like geo overlay. And then here we would be saying, name, I don't know how it will work, name arrow geoposition. That will be a point object or something. Name arrow geo trajectory or whatever, geopath, whatever it is, right? And that geo overlay would be with respect to the Earth, right? And then this would be what you put in there. In geoposition is a very interesting case. The more interesting case is geodistance of A to B.
Yes.
Whoops, with a geo overlay.
Right. So if I understand correctly, this is some sort of layer of geometrical information with names, and then you can refer to individual objects.
Right.
In that collection of
yes. And the reason I'm bringing this up right now is that there is a representation of the whole street thing and everything that we're getting from OSM and so on. There's a representation of that. And we can clone our symbolic version of that representation to use it for geo overlay.
Yes, like subparts of that, like
Right.
region as a region. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, whatever you're doing that is the
Mhm.
symbolic representation of OSM, we should be able to use for this. Make sense, Francisco and others?
Yes, we'll need a bit of more thought, but
Yeah, right. But I mean, so I'm going to be really asking, what is the representation that you're using, or isn't there one, but there should be one of, if I were just to raw import, all the data we have on this square kilometer,
Right.
what would it look like?
Yeah, so this is closely connected to the vector maps project, in which we directly download things in
Yes.
the vector map protocol, but we don't intercept it. And we want to intercept it to change styles and modify things. So I think this is
Yeah, it's directly related to that. So I mean, to me, so my understanding is there are IDs for like these streets and things, right?
Yep.
Yes, so we have IDs for the nodes, IDs for the ways, and the edges are the connection between the nodes IDs, right?
Yeah, right. So I mean, the whole point is, so what we're doing is we're saying when you have an entity, so what I would imagine is that the underlying thing is an entity store. Okay, the entity store has Bob's coffee or whatever it is, and this volcano or whatever it is, right? They have them as entities in the entity store. And those entities, I'm thinking, get a certain type and they get a whatever their they need a specification of their geolocations. And I don't know whether that's one specification for points, another for lines, and something else. I don't really know. But the basic idea would be that's an entity store, and that entity store contains entities with certain properties that are determine how they will be accessed by geoposition, by geonearest, etc. Does this make sense? So for example, the entities will contain, are they a street? Are they a volcano? Are they one of all the other different kinds of things that you can get in a map? And you should be able to add your own categories to this. Maybe you're installing hyperchargers for some new generation of rocket cars or whatever it is. Am I making sense?
Sure, and many geographic functions already know how to handle entities. So if they are if they are within an entity store, that will work for free, right? So
yeah, okay, fine. But what I'm saying is this entity store, geographic entity store, needs some kinds of things it knows about, and it knows how to render, and it knows what colors to use, and so on. And some kind of things, like a hypercharger, it doesn't know how to render, right? And it'll have to have some generic render. I mean, we might explicitly tell it in the entity store how to render that. Am I making sense?
Yes. So something we have discussed is that, for example, the same street may appear here broken into many pieces. And from the point of view of geographics, it doesn't matter. It's just pieces of lines. Now, how to reconstruct the whole street so that we can do computations of how far from the street you are, that's the non-trivial part, I think.
Okay. Well, that's a question for the base map of how we do that. We should think about that. Francisco and others, do you have any comments on that?
Right. So right now the connection we have is the name, but we could think about improving that.
No. What do you mean? I mean, you mean between the different elements, the different edges? What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Right. So if Francisco, if we have the same road, like broken into many pieces in different tiles, etc., and we have to reconstruct the whole road, how could we do it?
I think the problem is that we don't have the IDs by that time. So yeah, that's something that yeah,
What?
we should check the
What?
data.
Okay.
I mean, in the tiles, the IDs are lost, many of the IDs, because they are simplified to downsize the tiles.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. But we don't want to be, okay, right. But it's a different thing. I mean, getting the data and getting the full tile is different, is
Sure,
it not?
sure. Yes, it's different. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the thing we want to be able to do is to take named kinds of things and be able to have them be associated with entities in an entity store. Making sense so far?
So after downloading all the data, convert them into an entity store. That makes sense. Sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll want to store it as an entity store eventually, but that's a different thing. Okay. What the heck is this?
So what they have is a constructor, street geograph, that returns geograph. And I think the idea is that in the future we may have other types of geograph. This is what Francisco was saying before, for rivers or for whatever.
Yeah, I know. So this is not the right way to do it. It's absolutely not the right way to do it. I don't understand why there's features. Look, you're basically saying GeoGraph of some georegion or some geoentity, comma, what you want the graph of. So this is, main streets, for example, whatever it is. Am I making sense? We definitely don't want to put it in function names. This needs to work the same way that geoentities works, etc. Right?
But imagine, for example, that we wanted to describe the graph of neighborhood, sorry, the connectivity of the states in the US. Is that a geograph? I think it
Well,
is.
it would be nice if it could be made that way, yes. I think
Or
where,
migrations, something like that.
yeah. Well, I think that would be nice. I mean, just like we want to have geodensity functions, right?
Exactly. So that's why I'm not sure this geograph as currently constructed is general enough for all the purposes that we might want to have.
It doesn't
geographs.
matter. Doesn't matter, right? We don't have this yet for country, right? But we can get that because there the graph making relation is adjacency. Okay.
Yes.
And which is a little different. I mean, I could imagine that this is more like that. I'm not sure. Okay. In any case.
Yeah, also, we wanted to make a difference between the constructor and the object itself. So to avoid.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary. Just like every other graph function can take all kinds of things as input. Why did you want to make that distinction?
To have a cleaner way to add the options, etc. So not necessarily the options of the constructor are going to be the same of the actual geograph, right? For example, right now we don't have options for geograph, but
we should have graph options here. Why not? It's making a graph. Let's give it graph options. I mean, it may have additional options, which aren't graph options, but they're special GeoGraph options, but I don't see a problem with that. I mean, it's just like graph itself. I mean, if I give graph itself, don't actually know what's going to happen here, but let's try it. Yeah, works fine. See what I'm saying?
Yep.
It just canonicalizes itself to be the graph. Okay. Okay. What was this?
So I think they have 4 computation functions, right, Francisco?
yes. So this was to extract the names and Well, one was to extract the names, and the other is to extract, giving a name, extract the path that follows that named avenue.
Okay, so there's the question of what happens, and this relates again to our symbolic representation of geo overlays or whatever else, right? What happens when you extract something from the geo overlay? If it's a point thing, you could just get a geo position. I don't think you want that. I think you want, okay, here's what I think you want.
So right now we were returning another GeoGraph because with that you can still compute the stuff, right? So it would be similar to have somehow a subgraph.
Maybe. Or we could have a geopoint, geoline, and so on.
We already have geopath and geopolygon. We never introduced geopoint because we use points generally, but we could add geopoint.
Right.
But geopath and geopolygon are the 2D and, 1D and 2D versions.
Right. So is there any reason why we can't use geopath as the thing you extract when you get the street?
No. And in fact, I think geopath of the GeoGraph will extract those lines and plot them in geographics. I think that works, right, Francisco?
Yes, we are support for that.
Okay, but I want the path of a particular street. So how do I extract that path from?
So right now you use geopath over that GeoGraph, or well,
Okay,
over
but I understand. So I've got the GeoGraph, and it represents, it's one of these GeoGraphs up here.
Yep.
That one.
Okay. No, I don't know what the name of this particular street is there, but how do I extract a particular street from this?
That one won't work because that's not saved in the notebook.
Okay.
One of the ones that you evaluated.
Okay. Okay. How do I save that? And how do I get that? So what we should be doing here is say geoentities street, and it should give us a bunch of entities for streets, right? So we're going to have an entity for every geographic feature, yes?
I think we need something that directly returns the primitives rather than intermediate entities.
Well, that would be its own useful thing.
It's a bit like if we have a mesh region, how do we extract, I don't know, a face or a line?
How do we do that? Mesh, what is it called?
I mean, there are functions to extract all of them, but I'm not sure we have something to extract an individual one.
Or ones within a region. They don't have names mostly. I mean, mostly they don't have names. So,
right.
I mean, is it reasonable to have every street, every geographic feature here be an entity?
I'm not sure. So the problem is that most of them don't have, well, many of them don't have names, right? So maybe streets must have names, but other features don't have.
Right. They only have an ID.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, like what we're going to do, like what we do in many other packlets, what we would expect to have is, the name will be something like, London, : ba, 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 ba. Am I making sense? So if it has a name, it's there. And if you ask for a common name, it will give it to you. And if it has no common name, well, it's got to do something special for that case, but it will be something like this, right? And the entity which doesn't have a name is just a number, or it's just ID blah 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 or something. Make sense?
But those IDs are already there.
Yeah,
So,
I know. We just should be using them.
right.
Okay. So just to understand here, so we're saying there's a thing, geoprimitives, whatever it is, that extracts all the primitives of a given kind.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if every street had an entity name, we could still use geoentities.
Right. So we never implemented GeoEntities to work in the client side, but that's something that also we want to do. So to local entity stores, let's say, right?
Yeah,
Or
okay.
equivalent to a local entity. So that's something we never implemented for GeoEntities, but
Okay.
I see your point that maybe GeoEntities should interact with these kind of objects, local objects.
Yes. Okay. So tentatively, that's how we should do this. That is, everything in OSM gets an entity, is an entity. And presumably with a hierarchical density system, we could start off with a top level entity called geoentity, and then we could, go down to these smaller scale entity types underneath. Am I making sense?
In this hierarchy entity system, are we going to allow, let's say, local entities to inherit from, let's say, the system entity type?
Yes, absolutely.
Then
I
that
mean,
will
if
be
you've got
possible.
your
Yes,
own
yes.
river, you better be able to inherit from the river type, right? It's not user river or something. It's just a river. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that
Yep.
would be great if they could interact. Yeah.
Okay. You got to get in gear on some of this stuff. I mean, I'm glad it's now finally working 5 years later, but let's get in gear. Let's get this done. Let's get this geo server upgraded, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, we need to also have a project to turn all these geo fragments into entities. Make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand the idea. I'm a bit concerned about the volume of data here and how we can handle that, but we will explore it certainly.
I understand. I mean, we started doing this more than 10 years ago. Remember, we have a project in Wolfram Alpha of getting streets, right?
Yes, for all the, I think we have still that around notable streets or highways. I
I'm
don't
sorry,
even
what?
remember.
Well,
For the
I
notable
remember.
streets, or I'm not sure if we exposed that.
Famous street data, I think it was called. Something like
Right.
that.
So here it is. That's really weird. That's not the main one. That would be a planet. That's kind of crazy. We don't have the very obvious one in England. Oh well. Okay. Okay, but we did do some work on this before, right?
Yes.
You remember that, don't you?
Yes,
I've never
for the
worked
streets,
on
yes.
this, but yeah.
Yes, that was another Nicholas, actually. Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty funny. I don't know why it got the high street in Melbourne. It's got to be high streets all over the place. Okay, but this is the kind of thing we're going to want, right? This is the kind of thing we're going to want to generate. Am I making sense?
Yep.
Right, these were the main intersections. That's right.
Exactly. Exactly. This is nice, by the way. I mean, what this does is really nice. Wow. So that's a piece of the graph, basically. And some of them have links and some don't. Am I making sense?
Mhm.
Okay, so this is where we're going for the world. Okay. And presumably in these graphs, I'm going to say it again, you should be able to get a version of this graph that has purely edge weights that determine the distances. Am I making sense?
Yes.
Right. So that then this picture I mean, we'll probably have some function that draws that, but that's the basic idea.
Right, will be almost for free, this kind of function.
Yes. Okay. What else should I look at here? So I mean, basically we're agreeing then that we do not need a separate, we're going to use geoentities to return entities. And remember, we could have, instead of entities, we could have those external identifier things, right? For things that really don't have a name.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. I mean, I'm not completely certain that's right, but that's a possibility. And that would not gum up the entity system, although I don't know whether entity store can handle those things. Okay. Right. What's next to look at? So, and again, when you extract an entity, what you will presumably get out, I mean, I think there's going to need to be an object that is possibly even called geoentity that has an entity type and certain other information about it. Do you see what I'm saying? That's what you get out when you extract, Ampato or something, which in that case, you're getting out an entity. What am I saying?
So you mean geoentity as replacement for entity or as a type of entity?
No, I'm actually confused. Because if we make everything into an entity, including if people are adding their own geo information, it goes into an entity store. See what I'm saying? So everything that is geo accessible is an entity. Am I making sense?
Yes, I think we need to prepare like a collection of the standard types. And we
Yes.
already have cities and countries, but there are many more.
Yes, exactly. And my suggestion is then, let's talk about, for example, once we have all of that stuff, the styling for, specification of styles becomes fairly straightforward because it is, I mean, I know that there are multiple levels of streets, blah, 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 but at least we can say this is what a street is.
Mhm.
And then there will be subtypes of the styling. But once we have an entity, we can hang all kinds of properties off it. So, for example, if it's a road, we can hang its road type, road size, whatever, off it.
Mhm.
Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Right. Let's look at these other things. What on earth is this? Oh, that's just computing the radius of the geodis.
Yes, it was to get
It's cool.
so the idea was to here to play a bit on how to do the shortest path using this graph between different notable buildings.
Well, I mean, the function that we have is find shortest path, right, for a graph.
I'm sure we are using that behind, of course.
No, I understand, but the function name here is obviously not right. Wait a minute.
So we didn't want
That's
to overload.
returning a
Right.
GeoGraph. No. Look. What does okay, if I have a random graph here and I say, okay, it returns the graph nodes, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, in a GeoGraph, the nodes also have names. So we could perfectly well do this in a GeoGraph, right?
Right. They have IDs right now, and yes, actually, we could support this, and so the idea of having this or own function for this was that first it tries to find the node closest to the starting point and to the end point, because these are your positions. So these are not nodes.
Yeah.
Like find shortest path. So that's why we created a new function, because
Yeah, but I don't think you need it. I mean, well, you need something like that. I mean, you need find geo shortest path, something like that. But all this stuff what the hell is all this stuff? Oh, you put 17 things into this input. You were showing you aren't just giving. I want to see what the result from shortest path GeoGraph is.
right now it's a GeoGraph. Yes.
Okay, it's a GeoPath graph basically.
Mhm.
Yes. It's a will be equivalent to a GeoPath. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand, but I don't think I think it's very questionable that that's the right, because one feature of a path is it's got successive elements. It's linear. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
Returning a geopath blows that up.
But I think the point is that many of these nodes are non-relevant. They are like points in the street. It's just that the street is a
Yes,
little
I
bit
understand.
curved.
I understand.
And so they are trying to hide that.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's the right way to do it. Look, what we have here is a geopath, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's what it should be. But now, in a geopath, normally it would be, something like this. Okay, and that geopath just sits there like that. Except
Right.
if I say geographics.
So what they have is
What is
closer
happening?
to travel directions, in which we also had a geopath with lots of points in every corner, etc.
Yeah, well, what does happen in travel directions?
So you put a list with two cities, London and Oxford or something, and then you ask for geopath as a string.
What the hell?
What happened there? That's surprising. Why would the university fail?
I haven't a clue, but it's obviously a bug. Oh, come on. Well, this is a prototype build.
Okay, yes, but that particular. Okay.
I just want to check it works here. What the heck is going on? That's a production build. This is part of the ongoing tests by Syscom, right?
It works for me. That cannot in the production build. So sorry, I cannot explain that.
And it works for me in the production, in the prototype build too. So,
Okay, so this is an issue for Roger and
Mhm.
Syscom, I guess.
remember, we connect here to alpha, but your alpha is working because you have the entities, right? So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on in your.
Yeah, I understand. We're not sure what's going on, but let's make sure it's found out, right? But
Yep.
I don't remember what this actually returns. Maybe I can look.
That returns a travel directions data object.
Right. And from that travel directions object, we can get a geopath, which is again a geopath with lots of points because it has all the
So,
street
I mean, this
corners,
travel
etc.
directions object sounds awfully like some kind of enhanced geopath.
Exactly. And one of the questions we have at the end is the connection of all this functionality with travel directions, which in my opinion, is very close.
Yeah, it's very close.
And one idea, by the way, of returning a geopath for this shortest path, GeoGraph, sorry, was that in the GeoGraph we still have the data for the streets, for example, containing this path, etc. But if we return a geopath
I
only,
understand. I
we
understand.
lose
I
that.
understand.
Yeah.
Right, I got it. But the fact is, look, you could argue a path graph as a graph. We represent a path graph as a graph, right?
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
However, I don't think it's the right thing because they're going to want things like, what's the distance? What's the length of the thing? And that's something that presumably for geopath, if I want to know the total length of geopath, how do I get that?
Geo length of the geopath.
Okay. So, I mean, being able to do that, a geo length, I mean,
Right, but for example, something that if we convert that into a geopath, we cannot get, for example, how long will take to travel this path, right? That's
I
something we
understand.
have in
So
the
we have to either annotate geopath or have some other construct. I doubt you have that information in GeoGraph. You shouldn't, unless you ask for it, have that information in GeoGraph. I think that will be a good thing when you tag the edges, right? When you tag the edges for distance, you will probably also should have another annotation for speed limit.
Yes, we have that, of course.
But are they annotations on the graph or what?
They are annotations in the graph, but also as metadata in the GeoGraph.
Okay, but I'm
object.
not asking about that. I'm asking if I say graph of that GeoGraph, do those annotations of speed limits also get put into the graph?
Yes.
Okay. You might not want it, but I guess that's okay. So it has a name for that annotation, like speed limit or something. Is that right? Is that right?
It's in the annotation rules. It's
What
part
is
of
its name?
let me check that.
Edge max speed least, or edge max speed, something like that.
Okay. It's not a very good name, but I mean, we have to clean these names, but that makes sense. Okay.
Yes, we have edge motor speed list, and yep.
Okay. Okay, so that's based on graph distance. Is that the idea? That's the geodesic ball around the Louvre. Is that right?
Yes. And then you get this GeoGraph, which has a lot of nodes, of course, because it's a dense city. And
I understand, but what you mean by when you ask, oh, I see. That's 1 kilometer. Oh, that is in fact a disk, right?
yes,
Yes,
Because
indeed.
it says geodisk. So what are we doing with nearby nodes? What does that mean? What is a nearby nodes graph?
it's how long can you get from that point? Traveling the paths available.
I don't understand. This
So
is
the first argument of nearby nodes is the GeoGraph object.
Yep.
The second is the starting point, and the third is the distance. So it's what it returns is a GeoGraph object that includes every node and street and whatever that you can get to from the Louvre to.
I understand
Uh-huh.
in this with this around thing, but there are lots of little streets here that it isn't including.
This is by car right now.
Okay, but okay, the difference is it's this thing. I'm very confused. It's this thing here, selected not by distance, but it is by distance. I thought it was by graph distance.
It's by distance and by driving. In the previous map, you have lots of places you can go by walking.
Why does it
Those are
say driving?
eliminated. It's the default. The travel
I'm
method
totally
is the default.
confused. I mean, so this is all streets. This is a geodesic. This thing here, which should be called, wait a minute, that's GeoGraph, right? That's what we agreed above was called
Yes.
GeoGraph of disk, comma, streets, or whatever it is,
Yes.
right? That would give this. Now, in that notation, what is nearby nodes graph? What the heck is it? This is the full geograph of everything within that geographic region. Now, what's that second thing?
So the other is from a starting point, if you drive half kilometer or whatever we input, how long or where can you get?
I see.
Or
That's a function. I know we okay. So what this really is,
and we can put a time too. So
okay.
I want 5 minutes. So from the Louvre, in 5 minutes, where do I get driving?
Yeah, I understand. So this is really a geodisk in which this is a, something like driving distance 1 kilometer.
Right. That's no longer a disk, but yeah. So,
I see.
no. So
I
that's
understand the point. I understand the point. So it's a geo region or geo ball, geo.
Well, it's a set of streets. So it's something one-dimensional.
It's a subgraph of the full graph, of course. So,
Yeah, but it's a subgraph in the same sense that its nearest neighbor graph is a subgraph, which it is.
yes,
right?
yes. So it's a way to filter the graph. Yes. Instead of adding using the nodes, you say how long you want to get from this point. Yeah.
Right. But so what we could imagine is something like this. We say geo selection of the graph and then the point. Be nice to get the idea of a ball or something. What did you call this?
Nearby nodes GeoGraph.
No, that makes no sense. No, because that would suggest that was why I was confused and I was asking about graph distances. See what I'm saying? If you call it a node, I think about graph distances.
So yes, maybe we were thinking about the internal structure of the graph. That's why.
I don't give a damn about the internal structure.
No, sure. I know, but
right. I don't care, and that's the bad thing to be putting out as a name for people to use because they won't understand it. Okay. In any case,
if you scroll down a bit, we have also a nicer example for this. So with the idea of growing up the time.
Yeah, it's great. I've wanted this. I wanted this like 10 years ago. I managed to do this with some API. I needed it for something. Didn't we have some WFR that did this?
We have one for downloading the data, which is the first step.
I did this for some problem that I was trying to solve. I did this 14 years ago. But this is much easier and nicer than what I could do. Okay. This is pretty complicated. Why is there a rasterize there?
It was to make it faster for the animate. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So really what we're trying to do, we have the notion of a georegion, right? True statement?
Geopolygon, yes, general geopolygon. We don't have the combined multidimensional object that could be a georegion.
What do you mean?
Something that can hold inside both points, lines, and polygons simultaneously.
Some kind of general primitive, right?
Yeah.
Which is called in some system shape, right?
Right now, what we use is a list of primitives, and that's handled by geographics and other things. But we don't have the wrapper yet.
We will have this georegion wrapper at some point.
Eventually, yes, I think so.
Okay. Didn't we have a design for this more than 10 years ago?
For georegion, I don't.
This for this function.
Oh.
Is there
You
a
have requested
WFR that
it.
does this? What's that?
You have requested it a few times, but I don't think we had ever a design.
Or
Are you
even
sure?
or even a name. So that's why, yeah, I don't remember a name for this.
Well, we have referred to it as GeoGraph in general, but again, I'm not sure it's the proper name because to me, GeoGraph feels more general. And I think
Yeah, it's the wrong thing.
GeoGraph,
Yeah.
it's more about connectivity. I think this function is focusing too much on the geometry.
Yeah, I agree. So, but what this is going to, what we want is this is a cookie cutter for geographs. This is a way of subgraphing a geograph.
Yes, it's almost like intersection, like a geo-intersection. We have this object you were referring to before, which is some sort of general geometric thing, and then we cut pieces out of it.
No, I mean, if we had GeoGraph of georegion, we're done. That would be the right thing, right?
But
Not
how do we
sure.
select the edges? If we have, imagine georegion is a bunch of points. How do we know which
I don't think it
edges?
should be a bunch of, okay, but I mean, georegion should be a description of this polygonal region.
But it might be the whole collection of buildings in Paris, for example. We'll have connectivity. So that's why GeoGraph is about connectivity, not about geometry.
GeoGraph, you mean? It's about
GeoGraph.
connectivity. Yeah, I know, but I'm saying everything. Okay, there are two issues here. We already talked about, GeoGraph, Lima, street, let's say, right?
Yes.
We agreed that that is giving a street GeoGraph of Lima with various annotations to street and so on, right?
Yes.
Okay, so all I'm saying is that if we could define this georegion, okay, that we could have this. Now the question is, how do we define that georegion? It is, okay, so what is it we want? We want a georegion that could just be a geodisk. Okay, that's as the crow flies. See what I'm saying? Is it something like that?
But if what we have inside your region is a geodisk, are you assuming that something will go to a geo server and download everything inside that geodisk? Or because the geodisk is not a graph at all by itself.
I know. Look, what I'm saying is, forget the georegion for a second here. Okay.
Yep.
Let's just imagine that you say GeoGraph, which you were just doing, GeoGraph of geodisk, blah, 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 right? That
Of
works.
the street. Yes, that's something that will work in the current design. Yes. With the current idea.
Yes, this will work. Okay, so what I'm proposing is GeoGraph of geotravel disk of you know,
A starting point and a distance over time. Yeah.
Eiffel point, whatever that might be. There doesn't seem to be an Eiffel
Eiffel
point.
Tower, yeah.
There. Comma 10 minutes.
And there you could even support the travel methods as an option,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. That's what I would propose. I mean, maybe there's a better name for GeoTravel disk, but this functionality basically.
And GeoTravel disk by itself does nothing.
It does nothing, but you should be able to render it. Like GeoDisk. Look, GeoTravel disk would make a region like this if you render it.
I see. So it's some sort of street set, like all this.
It's a
all the
complex file of
streets.
streets, as you've done here.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, to be fair, the locus of where you can reach doesn't include the river. You see what I'm saying?
Right. It's a
Places you can reach in
streets.
10 minutes unless you have a hovercraft or something, doesn't include the middle of the river. So it isn't really a travel disk.
I don't understand that point. But for example, would you include the buildings in that region?
No, I mean, my original idea, which I think is not right, is to include basically the geometrical object. My point about the hovercraft, okay, and the river is this. Okay, if you say, what is the locus of points I can reach in 10 minutes? Okay, with a car.
I see.
Right? That is not that convex hull.
Right. I see your point. Yep.
Right. It's only the paths, actually, right? So that's it.
Right. It's actually a one-dimensional family. I mean, if there's a park there and you're walking, you might be able to get further. But fundamentally, okay, so we don't want the word disk there. So fundamentally, what that thing wants to be Okay. I think I'm understanding. Hold on. I think what we want is something like this, geo-reachable or something. What that means is that is the set of things which, from that point, with that distance, and the things you're looking at are of that type. What is the collection of geo-reachable things? And that could be a list of entities, or it could be all kinds of other things. Now, I agree that you're saying, well, okay, so maybe the right thing, maybe you're right, that this should in fact be geo-reachable graph. That then it's the direct analog of GeoGraph. Okay, so here's the difference. So GeoGraph has a region and then a type, right? We agree? That's how we're planning to set
by
it up,
type,
right?
you mean streets, for example.
Yeah, street.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I think this is pretty reasonable. The only thing we're not getting here is I want these streets, but I only want them if they're in this city. I think then you have to do an intersection.
But maybe the first argument should be the actual GeoGraph where you want to do this analysis.
No, how do you give the point then?
No. So, for example, you have this GeoGraph of all all things around the loop.
You're thinking implementation. I'm not.
Okay, yeah, because that could be implicit in some cases, so that if you don't provide that, it will download that from the server.
Yeah, you're thinking implementation. We don't care about that at this point. I mean, look, the issue here is if you wanted to have already pruned, okay, so I think we could do this. We could have GeoGraph arrow PT, for example, here. If you wanted to not have, if you wanted to specify, gosh, it'll be nice to have this thing that indicates where this is. Right, so this is what I'm suggesting. Geo-reachable graph starts from a point, has a distance, has like type like street, for example, which is optional. Make sense?
Yep. This reminds me of a GeoNearest with some sort of distance function driving.
Yes. But the problem with GeoNearest, well, okay, let's look at GeoNearest. The problem with GeoNearest,
Yeah, I think it has a different structure for what
well,
we will need.
I know we could say GeoNearest graph. But let's see what GeoNearest.
Or for example, can you open the documentation of GeoGraph plot? And compare the first two examples. The first one is by geodesics. The second one says graph layout driving. And now we know that we have to follow that.
Yes. Well, I do think GeoNearest with driving would be very nice. I mean, okay, I've got several suggestions here. Okay, GeoNearest, one thing that's just bonkers right now. Bonkers. We should have done this ages ago. GeoNearest point, no, type, point, and then something with units, 2 kilometers. Why not just accept that? You shouldn't have to give N as well. See what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
Yes, but so now it's everything that is within 2 kilometers
Of that type.
of that type. Yes.
Yeah, that's the right thing. That's what we should have done ages ago. I mean, if it's
But
volcano,
isn't that geoentities of a geodisk?
yes,
So
yes, it
I
is
mean,
of a geodisk, right? But this is we're talking about doing something which isn't a geodisk. You understand what I'm saying?
right, but I think somehow we already have that.
No, we don't.
Exact.
No, we don't. No, we don't. Not if we're saying here, distance function arrow driving. See what I'm saying? Then we don't have that.
Right.
We could have geodisk, but that was the point I was making about hovercrafts, okay?
Mm-hmm.
A geodisk with a distance function of driving doesn't make sense.
Right. Yes, this cannot be inside geodisk.
Right.
Yes.
But geoentities,
So that's
Yeah.
for this particular case of distance function, special distance function, but for
yeah,
default,
yeah.
it's the same. Yeah.
Yes. Geoentities has a region here, right? I guess, hold on a second. Geo nearest.
So
No, it cannot take a region. If you give a region here, that means things nearest to any point in the region.
right. So that's a point, and then we have the notation all comma 2 kilometers, but we don't have 2 kilometers only.
I know we should. It's just silly. That's just a silly oversight. We should do that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's easy to implement, but we can have a region, and everything within that region will get a distance 0, by the way.
Absolutely.
And that
If
works right
point
now.
is a region, if point is a region, then everything inside has distance 0. You are correct.
And that already works that way.
Okay, fine, good. But I'm just saying the syntax should work of having a quantity, a unit, an object with a quantity here that is a distance should just work. Am I making sense?
Yep.
And we also should make it, if we install this distance function arrow driving, we could have this work with a time as well. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, we'll try.
Do we have the notion of a geodistance function, or do we want to actually use distance function there?
We don't have a separate geodistance function. We have used distance function before.
Okay,
in
but
those
have we
functions.
had different settings for distance function?
What do we have, Francisco? Signed distance and things
Yes,
like that?
we created this signed distance for cases that, for example, a circle, so that we get negative distance for things inside the boundaries.
But is that a distance function that isn't supported elsewhere?
Right, that's not supported anywhere else, I think, besides the geo functions. So that's a
Right.
name.
So have we documented it on the distance function page?
I don't think so.
No, we haven't. We need to, obviously. So can we make that happen, please?
Yep.
Okay.
But by the way, your nearest of volcano, comma Peru gives exactly the same result as geoentities of Peru, comma volcano. So yeah, that's working right now, as you expected.
Good. Good. Okay. So let's go back to this.
So renaming this functionality of nearby nodes to geo-reachable graph.
No, we're not talking about that yet. Yeah, the nearby nodes is obviously wrong. Okay. But we haven't figured out exactly what we are going for. But go on. What were you going to say?
Okay. So I was thinking that this functionality will be more than this geo-reachable graph makes sense as name for what we are trying to do.
Yes, but let's make sure we're right. Yeah. Okay. So there's a point and a distance, and so this is.
I'm still confused about graphs versus geometry. For example, can we have buildings instead of streets?
What does the distance mean? If the distance is on streets, we know it's a travel distance, right? Or is that distance a crow fly's distance? What does that distance mean?
It's along the streets, but do we return the objects that we can find within that distance?
Look, maybe this is geo-travel graph. Okay, which starts from a point. What was the thing called in travel directions? The driving versus what was that option called?
Travel method.
Travel method.
Travel method here.
Yep.
Okay, and then if it's travel graph and there's a distance, and then we say here streets, buildings, whatever you want. See what I'm saying?
Right. So because you are specifying the name that is travel, we already know we should move along the streets, right?
Yes. I think this is the right thing because that's the only thing I mean, there are really only two cases we know about. As the drone flies or as the whatever it is, the car drives, right? And geodesic is as the drone flies up to wind, and travel graph is as the car drives or the person walks or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yes, but sorry to ask again. So where do we put the buildings here? The buildings could be the nodes, or
So what would you expect as output here?
A graph.
Another GeoGraph? Or
Obviously a graph. Obviously a GeoGraph.
Right, but I think Jose's question is the buildings, how would they connect in this graph? Because right now there is no connection.
Why aren't they
in the
just
data.
disembodied nodes? How do they connect? Okay, if you ask for GeoGraph and instead of asking for street, I ask for building, what do I get? I think I should get dust. See what I'm saying? I think I should get a bunch of disconnected nodes that have vertex coordinates.
I see, and we don't connect those buildings to their streets, for example.
I don't think so. I don't think so, unless that's what's been done in the underlying graph.
Well, I think we are here comparing the geo overlay that you were talking about before that has all these buildings and everything, and the graphs, which seem to be more one-dimensional.
Well, then maybe we shouldn't have the buildings in this geotravel graph. Maybe it is just streets and things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we leave the buildings in this other concept of the overlay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then right. So in geotravel graph, the third argument says what kind of a thing to show, what level of street to show, but it's got to be a street-like construct. Just like in GeoGraph, it's got to be a one-dimensional construct, not a zero-dimensional construct.
Mm-hmm.
What about a two-dimensional construct, like a park?
Right, or a building.
Yeah, actually, in OpenStreetMap, many buildings have a shape, so that's right.
Okay, but so what here? Is that relevant to the GeoGraph?
Probably not. I mean, this could be also a travel GeoGraph, and then it becomes one of the travel family, and it returns a GeoGraph.
That's not a bad idea. Okay, I've got the next question. What does GeoGraph deal with other than streets?
I think
So right now,
is the only thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, right now we implemented only the streets.
What else could we implement?
Right. So we have different types of. So we could implement anything that has ways in OpenStreetMap, for example, like rivers, or there are many other things that maybe we could support with the same, let's say.
Okay, but what's the difference between, other than the travel discovery, so to speak? Look, we could have travel GeoGraph where you ask for rivers. And presumably the default travel method, if you ask for rivers, is a boat. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
But otherwise, in GeoGraph, I don't understand what you can ask for other than. So the point in GeoGraph is that the distance in GeoGraph is a drone distance. See what I'm saying? Whereas the distance in travel GeoGraph is a travel distance.
Well, I was hoping that GeoGraph could be more general. Again, we have the function GeoGraph value plot. Okay, can you open that documentation? That shows other types of graph. And here we could have, I don't know, commercial relations and things like that,
Yeah, I see.
or migrations, or
Right, because it makes sense that a geograph of streets will use the travel distance as, let's say, edge weight, right? Or equivalent to the edge weight.
Fine. But I mean, the question that I'm really asking is, are we actually building GeoGraph or are we building GeoStreet graph?
exactly. To me, we are building a travel geograph or a geostreet graph so far.
Right. So why don't we just admit it's travel geograph and then we have to deal with the distance, what region. Okay, the main point is we've got two pieces of functionality. I mean, we've got travel geograph where it could be just a region and a type. And then we've got, instead of the region, there are actually three cases. Instead of the region, we've got a point and a distance, right? Or a time.
Yep.
And we've got a third case, which is this thing cookie cuttered by a region. See what I'm saying? In other words, go that distance, but if you go out of town, drop it.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? So I don't know exactly how we represent that. I mean, region, I don't know how we represent that. But those are the cases we're dealing with.
Yes.
And probably the first and the third at the implementation level are the easiest one.
Well, fine. I mean, I don't know, because the distance, you mean, if you say 1,000 miles, there are lots of ways to go 1,000 miles.
Yeah, it's an open problem, and
Well, but hold on. Even in that case, right? This is geodesic distance. This is shortest distances, right? We're saying, because obviously you can have closed curves and things, right? You could just keep going around that same square an infinite number of times. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's the shortest distance.
no, sure. But, yeah. No, of course we can analyze the largest. So the largest possible point to distance is the geodesic distance, right? Because travel
Yeah,
distance is always
always smaller than
smaller.
that, right? The drone can always go further.
Yes, that's the limit. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it is what it is. It's going to take some computational effort to figure that out. But people are going to find that useful. I mean, if they ask for 1,000 miles around Chicago or something, it's going to take forever. Although it's not going to take forever if the type here is superhighways.
Right, motorways. It's
Well,
the
whatever.
name it has, but
We're
yes.
going to come to that in just a second.
Yep.
Okay. Are we happy with this?
And this will return this geograph object. Is that what
It'll
you're
return
saying?
a travel
we will
geo-
keep the travel geograph as an object?
We could return a geograph. I mean, but then geograph itself does basically nothing.
Which might be fine, I think.
Well, it could be that geograph.
It's a container. So we
Yeah,
have
but
potentially in the future other constructors of that container. Oh, that's fine.
yeah, fair enough. And then here, geograph value plot should obviously take a geograph.
Right. And GeoGraph plot.
GeoGraph plot right now takes a GeoGraph. Yes.
Okay. But both, I mean, so then we have to GeoGraph, and then we can go from there to a graph. But when we go to a graph, we lose a bunch of geometry and so on. Right?
Yes.
Yes. We
That will
lose
be the main
at least
difference, I think.
information.
Yep.
Right. I think this is fairly reasonable. And then we
Yep.
wouldn't have a second argument to GeoGraph with the type. That would only be in travel GeoGraph.
Mm-hmm.
No, but GeoGraph is
But-
already a constructor. So
But how about if we
Uh,
make it not a constructor?
no, so sorry. GeoGraph will be a container. I think GeoGraph maybe should have a first argument with some kind of type, so to recognize the source of the
No,
GeoGraph.
no. You can put that in somewhere else. I mean, GeoGraph, look, no, absolutely not. If you construct a GeoGraph to be used here, whatever the input syntax is for GeoGraph value plot, which appears to be this, right? It should be the case that you can construct, that's a very ugly thing there, that I can construct from this, okay, this thing here, I can just say GeoGraph of that, and I will get a GeoGraph. No funny business with, see what I'm saying? You get a disembodied GeoGraph, but with edge weights. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
but something needs to know whether the edges are geodesics or travel roads.
Okay. Well, what knows here? So, I mean, how do you specify that in GeoGraph value plots?
I mean, GeoGraph plot has a graph layout. So perhaps we just store the graph layout as an option of the GeoGraph.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but yes, an option here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't think that's I mean, it's more something like GeoGraph routing or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe what we will need is more a way to have a general connection for the edges. I mean, Rome to Milan maybe it's not I want a specific geopath to go from Rome to Milan in this geograph. So maybe that should be an option for each edge, an annotation for each edge.
Well,
right?
in that case, it's got to be a geopath for each edge. But look, I think
Your edge path or something like that, right? So that will be the list of geopaths between edges, or between nodes, right?
yeah, but which is very much like edge labels, for example.
Right.
Right, and that will be in general optional, and the ones that have some specification will use that instead of a geodesic, right?
Yeah, but these things here in GeoGraph should be also be allowed to be, directed edges, undirected edges, and so on, right? We agree.
Yep.
Sure.
And
Right
that's
now we have both, yes.
Okay, but this is the basic construction. Then GeoGraph is fundamentally inert. What would GeoGraph display? So how would GeoGraph display? You type it in, what's it going to display? I think what it should display is something without a base map. So in other words, these GeoGraph plot is something that adds extra stuff. What I'm suggesting here is hold on. Okay. So what I'm suggesting is that GeoGraph has a display form that is the disembodied geopoints. Does that make any sense to people?
Yes, it makes sense.
I mean, there's slight funkiness with the fact that it still has to have projections and God knows what else. But I think that's the right way to do it. And then GeoGraph plot would actually plot it with the base map and so on.
Yep.
So I was thinking that maybe we should keep the summary box form because GeoGraph can be very large in general. So most cases are very large. Or
Then
maybe we
have a
could do.
then have something that is like the too big mechanism, like the output size limiter. If that's really a problem, consider an output size limiter.
Yes. Well, now that I
But
think
that's
graph,
all we have to say, because I mean, otherwise, if it's a GeoGraph with 3 points, we don't want a summary box.
I see your point. Like graph, actually, right? Because large graph also get a summary box. For
Yes,
example.
a sufficiently large graph. That's a good point. Sufficiently large graphs get summary boxes.
Yeah, that makes
Okay.
sense. Yeah, yeah, I see
So
your
we've
point.
got GeoGraph. Okay, so the thing we haven't talked about, and I'm going to need to go in a moment here, but the thing we haven't talked about back up here, I don't know what this is.
So we created this GeoGraph data function that works like an extractor for the properties of the GeoGraph.
Okay, we'll talk about that another time. Okay,
Yep.
this. Okay, I don't know what that means, but when I've just been typing street, it seems like we need a curated list of what kinds of things we're talking about there, right? Because you've got
Right.
different random
Yeah.
things here, and that's not going to work.
So street will be the general case for every type of street, let's say, and we could have more specific types,
Okay,
like
but
motorways, highways, whatever.
okay, but let's so it'd be street would be any street. We
Right.
could have. I'm sorry.
Yes. So right now, what we download is every type of street. So service for bikes, for pedestrians, everything. It's kind of, which might be
Okay.
fine
All right.
in
Okay.
for
Okay.
street.
So, I mean, we've got highway, which is motorway, which might be a synonym for motorway. Am I making sense? Does that make sense?
Yes. For what OpenStreetMap has, it's a motorway, trunk as the main types of highways, and then has primary, secondary, and tertiary as the next level of streets for the within cities, and sometimes between cities too, the primaries.
Oh, so there's primary street. I mean, we might want all streets above a certain size. There's primary street, secondary street, etc. Right?
Yes, and there are also levels below this tertiary street, which are residential, service, trucks, etc. So yes.
Okay, so we need a curated list of these names.
Yes, also,
and we're not
example,
interested in ones which are a street that is so obscure that there's one of it in the world, right? A special street for turtles or something. We're not going to deal with that. But we might want some way of asking for a raw street type. Do you see what I'm saying?
Actually, the list is there is a complete list of available types of streets.
Can you show it to me?
Send
it. Then I need to get going in a moment.
Yeah, let me check that. Right. Nicolas, do you have that by hand?
Sorry, which
the thing we were just asking about, the list of street types.
Street types?
Like motorway, primary.
The thing we were just talking
Oh,
about.
I mean, yes. But I mean, I have the map features at hand. So the overpass map features. Here it is. Oh, sorry. Wait a second.
Yeah, I put that. No. This is the list. I put the list in as a list, so you can have
Oh, okay.
that. That's the list, for example, for things that are used for cars, for example.
Well, but that's not the only thing we need, right? Because we want to be able to.
No,
Okay,
right.
I've
But
got the following question. Okay, a
Mhm.
thing we're calling a street. Is there anything that is? I mean, a canal, for example, is not a street,
no,
right? A
no.
ferryway, a ferry path is not a street. But these are things that it's reasonable to want to make this kind of travel geograph out of.
Yes. So it can be useful to look at the link because I mean in the link we're right now using highway types, but there are some other ways, like for example,
Railways.
Yes.
There's a good example.
railways. There are waterways. There are aerial ways. So yeah, those things could be implemented.
Okay. So, I mean, arguably, okay, this is another meeting we need to have about this, okay? Because we're going to need,
Because it's somehow
yeah,
more like a street goes to and the type of streets we want.
I don't think that's the right thing we want to do because the type of street, a railway is not a type of street.
No, right. But you could say a street and goes to motorways or things like that.
Not convinced.
Because the problem is that it's kind of a different category, this of the type of street, right?
Yeah, well, I think then that it's better to have a list where we say, but I don't know how it's going to work. This requires another meeting, okay? But get all the stuff, railways, rivers, canals, tunnels. I don't know. I don't know what there is there. Figure it out. I mean, airways.
Right. The tunnels is part of streets, by the way.
What's that?
Because tunnels is a tag within the streets.
Okay, but for us, right, for what we're trying to do, it's like, I don't know whether they have what do they call Victor Airways or something. I think they're called the paths from one navigation nav aid to another. You know what I'm talking about for planes. Completely not don't know what I'm talking about. Well, okay, there's a network of those things in the world. I don't know what uh which they may or may not have. Am I right? Yeah. Some random thing like this. Oh, where is it? This one here. These things here. See those?
So these are things between cities or within an airport?
No, they're between navigation aids.
Oh, I see.
They're between radio beacons.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they may just not have these, but that's another thing I can imagine as a geograph.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. We might want submarine cables and
Yeah, right. Victor Airways, submarine cables, etc. I mean, even just network cabling, network trunks, all kinds of things like that. Electrical cables, electrical trunks. Okay. Well, so, and some of them will come from this data source, some will come from other data sources. But I think what you're saying is, there's a railway, but it's like you might want historical railways. And then you get into all kinds of different things. But my guess is that in the end, everything that is one of these things, a canal, a river, whatever, they're going to be entities. or they're going to be these ID references, right? And there's a selector for which rivers, for example, it's got to be a river that's more than just a little, stream or something. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So there's selectors on these. First is the primary travel type. It's a little bit weird that a submarine cable is in a travel graph, but I think we can survive with that. It's the electrons that are doing the traveling in that case, or the photons if they're modern times. But then what you're saying is we need to subcase some of these things, like streets, for example.
Yes, maybe that could be a list or.
I don't know whether it's a rule, a list, whatever, right? But I mean, does graph union work with geographs?
Not yet. We were trying to implement that also. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We should probably wrap up, but I'm really glad to see this functionality coming in. I just want to make sure that we really push to get it finished.
I had a general.
It's got to be quick. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Ask.
it's a quick question. So, in the link I sent to you, there are, as I told you, multiple. So it's basically keys and values, right? So highways has a lot of values, aerial way has a lot of values, etc.
Yes. Yes.
So what I'm thinking implementation wise, of course. What when you say we should be able to get the river, canal, etc., perhaps we should use the values, like most of the values, the main values, perhaps.
I don't understand what you're saying. I mean,
So for example, this railway.
key. Yeah, there's a key,
Mhm.
right? So
Yes.
arguably I don't know, we got to go through this in detail, right? This is not a quick question,
Mhm.
right? There are things like what are you saying? I mean, yes, the top level probably will be based on what they're calling the key most of the time. I mean, this is
Mhm.
going to have to be curated. The whole thing's going to have to be curated.
Yes, because some
Yes.
names are very obscure. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
We need
But then
aliases,
what is your
definitely.
point? Your point is that we've got keys and we've got values. And if we use, and I don't know how we're going to deal with both of those pieces, whether we're going to try and smoosh them together in a single object, which I don't think is the best thing, because I think, we could have historical railway, we could have all railways. I don't know. I don't know what the right way to do it is. We're going to have to look at it in detail. But it would be
Okay.
great to have some kind of proposal from you guys.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Anything else? Johan, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay. I'm very excited to see this stuff actually coming in. And I think we've got a decent design here, but we've still got more work to do on these types.
Mhm.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Talk to you all soon.